Rain and stain occurs mostly over the plains.
Okay, that's enough of that.
Good.
You're
I'm
good. You're good.
Yeah, I think so.
Y'all warmed up?
Hold on, let me loosen up.
Stop.
Welcome to the No Guilt Fangirls podcast, where liking what you like is never a bad thing. Here's your host and head fangirl in charge, Patty Holliday.
Hey y'all, welcome to the No Guilt Fangirls podcast. I'm your host and head fangirl in charge, Patty Holliday. So guys, it happened. Last episode, I had Tessa on talking about Stranger Things. And, you know, I'd seen episode 1 something like 3 times and I just couldn't get past it, couldn't push past it. But you never know, the 4th time is the charm. Between Tessa and my family convincing me, I sat down and I binged. So here we are. 14-ish, 15-ish, I'm not even sure how many hours it was total, but I did it. I made it through both seasons of Stranger Things. And I gotta say, I'm a Stranger Things fangirl now. It happened. That makes watching TV around my house a little bit easier because my guest today would like to watch some TV with me sometimes, and it doesn't work when we don't want to watch the same thing.
We're looking at you, Jane.
Oh, shots fired. So today I've got my husband on the show for the first time. Hey, Rob.
Hi, babe.
And Rob and I go way back, like we old people. We old.
Okay.
No, we are.
I don't know.
No, okay. We're in denial.
Fine. There. All right, fine. We're in denial.
We're in denial, but trust me, we're old. So here's a pop quiz, hot shot. How'd we meet?
At a Christmas party, and it was through the restaurant that you and my roommate at the time worked at. We were talking, you came in, I don't know what, on a fake ID of some sort, I think.
Something like that.
You would have had to at that point.
I was only 18.
I was going to say, I think like 6 months prior, I could have probably gotten in trouble for taking you on a date.
Probably.
I think we started talking and...
No.
Oh.
You fail.
Okay. Are we going to go there?
We're going to go there. It's fun. Right. It's a good story.
Okay. Full story.
So we're in a bar. Rob walks in. I walk in. We're sitting down.
Discovered that an ex-girlfriend of mine is somewhere in the back of the bar.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. Our mutual friend Carl had let all of the women who were working there at the restaurant know that I had an ex in the place and that they should all come and make friends with me and sit on my lap and so on and so forth to make her basically irritated and hopefully leave. Patty comes in and basically gets the gist of what's going on and sits down on my lap, and that's how we meet.
And I never left. Aww. Wait, that sounds weird.
It was all part of Carl's and I elaborate ruse.
Is that what? Is that it? Yeah.
It was a ruse.
You tucked the crazy ex into showing up and just
well, then I told you about the whole I'm going to be a lawyer thing, and
that's right. That's right. Guess what, guys? He's not a lawyer. He's.
It's not that I didn't have plans. It's just that.
Oh, I saw the acceptance letter. This was a real thing. He just chose not to go. We kind of got sidetracked.
Well, turns out I didn't have to go to law school to get what I wanted.
Oh, ouch. Alrighty, so hi guys, this is Rob. Now that you've met him, you see what my life is like. This is what I am dealing with on a daily basis. And I am #blessed because he's fun.
Yes, you are.
Now, for the first probably 10 years... we watched a lot of movies. Do you remember that? When we dated, we would see like 3 movies in the theater a night. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We'd go to see multiple movies and then like during the weeks. And then, as if that wasn't enough.
Well, then we got poor.
Well, yeah. And then we got poor. And then it was, poorer. And then it was Blockbuster. Every day, all day. And then if Blockbuster didn't have something, I think like...
Hollywood Video.
Yeah, there was Hollywood Video. Yeah. And then there was, and so you'd have these stacks of VHS tapes when you would walk out.
Yeah, so we have a very 80s, 90s relationship over here. And, that's the thing about us is that we really found out that we loved movies and we loved watching them together. So if I don't like it, Rob usually does. If Rob likes it, I usually don't. That's
there's some spots though where we meet in the middle, like
sometimes
Stranger Things, Star Wars,
true,
pretty much all the Disney animation stuff.
That's true. Yeah, and in fact, guys, this is how I knew Rob was a keeper.
You're right. Oh, I know where you're going. Yeah, I do.
I do. Into this spotless apartment. Spotless, guys. And this is like you were like 21, maybe 22 at the time? 21?
I was 22.
22? You were young, and the place was completely clean. Like, not even a dish in the sink. And I was like, oh, did you know I was coming over? And he's like, no, it just always looks like that. I was like, oh, wow. Okay.
And then she thought, you know what? Maybe if I marry him, I'll never have to clean the house. Because...
Yeah, it didn't happen either.
Which part? Never cleaning the house?
Never cleaning the house.
Yeah, because that happened.
Well, yeah, but that's because we have kids that clean the house for us now.
Do they?
Well.
Do they?
Again, we're getting sidetracked.
Okay, sorry.
This is probably why I haven't had Rob on before, because it's easy to get sidetracked. However, I walk in, clean, spotless place, not a dish in the sink, and a row of Disney VHS tapes. Again, 22-year-old male.
If I had a cat, she probably would have assumed otherwise. She'd be like, is he sure he wants to date me? Or maybe some of the guys that I work with?
So I do remember sitting on the couch with you and watching Beauty and the Beast. And you actually, even at the time, that watch, you had the Three Amigos.
I did.
Or
the
Three Caballeros. Three Caballeros.
I still have that. It's just the battery doesn't work anymore, but I still have the actual watch.
We have a love language that was developed in Disney/movies. Yeah, that was what attracted me to you.
That's kind of weird.
Hey.
I mean, given everything else that I bring to the table, that's really what what did it for you?
It's 25 years later. Accept it.
But I don't have the Disney movies anymore, see? So.
Real quick, though, touch on what are some of your other fandoms, because you like a lot. And I do mean quick, because this could go on all day. So
I do like it all.
You like everything. But let's narrow it down to like top 3 or 4 things that you would love to talk about all day, every day, if that was your job.
For me, the top couple things, I'm a huge music fan, and I pretty much like everything. Video games, especially the 80s stuff, which is what's so fun to talk about Stranger Things, because the 80s video games and arcading and stuff like that was so much fun. I love movies, of course, like we just talked about, and think, well, if you were to go down in the basement, we do have walls down there. They're just hidden behind bookshelves, which are full of books and books and books and books, which I'll readily admit I have not read 10% of, but that's not the point.
So really, you're just a hoarder.
I'm a library builder.
You're a library builder. Yes. All right. I didn't know that was the thing.
Yes.
Okay. So, guys, if you ever need to borrow a book, come knock on our door, because we probably own it.
True facts.
True facts. Yeah. Stranger Things. We're getting back onto Stranger Things now that we have totally dissected our marriage and how we met. It is one of the shows that you and I, that you got into and I just didn't. I couldn't. I tried and it just didn't happen. You actually even got our 14-year-old daughter, Claire, into watching this with you. And you guys have watched both seasons and you loved it. And both of them really enjoyed it. They just, for whatever reason, Mom was not on board. What do you think you liked about it from the start?
I think when I started watching it, and here's the geek side of me, because I still think the game is fascinating. One of the first things I remember watching when they were having the ads coming out for it was the 4 boys were sitting down in the basement playing Dungeons and Dragons, which is near and dear to my heart, as you know. And then when I heard the music that went along with it, it's these keyboardy soundtracks that, like, if you listen to the music from movies like Scarface, it's all keyboard driven. Or if you knew 80s bands like Joy Division and New Order, they had all these kind of keyboard sounds. And so there was just this really cool 80s vibe that you could see throughout the trailer. So I was kind of hooked. And plus, it was a show about these young kids kind of going on this crazy, I don't want to call it an adventure because their friend going missing and isn't really an adventure, but it was a journey these kids had to take, and I just thought that was a really cool premise.
Well, for me, when I finally got into it, it took about 4 episodes, maybe even 5. I mean, I can't think of a specific moment, but I think at that point I was like, all right, I'm into this. This is something that I can watch. And I think a lot of it really was the draw of the 80s and all the references and all these Easter eggs that they piled into the show, because that was me growing up. The show is 1984, is that right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So it starts in 1984, and for me, that was between 4th and 5th grades. That's right where I was growing up. So a little bit younger than these kids. Rob's a lot older than me. He's giving me a look, guys. All right. He's not a lot older. He's just a couple of years older.
I'm more distinguished.
He's more distinguished.
I'm more distinguished.
So it actually turns out you're probably about the same age as these kids.
You mentioned that, and it occurred to me when I was watching is that these kids at that age during that time era is exactly how old I was.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, they're in Hawkins, Indiana, which is the Midwest, and I was living in Minnesota at that time, and I was in around the Minneapolis area. So a lot of the touch points were like, oh my gosh, I could totally see myself being in one of their shoes, not necessarily because of the story itself, but like the clothes they wore and the things they did and the music they listened to and the bikes and all the other good stuff that went out that they put into the show.
Yeah, we both had older siblings that were in high school around this time. So even the high school kids, the high school characters of the show were very familiar to me when I was watching it, because I swear my older sister had a friend that acted everything just like Barb. Just like Barb. It was crazy.
We did. I remember being in Minnesota, you had very distinctive personalities, and you had some that, as we'll talk about a little bit later, like Collie, Eleven's Jane's friend,
right.
the girl. She had like kind of this new wave hairdo, and so you had a lot of gals in Minnesota who that was the way they looked. New wave was huge in Minneapolis at that point in time, but you also had some very traditional families, and Barb was very much a paradigm of what a lot of gals also looked like at that time.
Yeah, I was in Texas, so I didn't see a whole lot of new wave going on in San Antonio during that time period. But when you said that, I was like, oh, I guess that's true. That's kind of when like Flock of Seagulls and all that, right?
It was Flock of Seagulls, Duran Duran.
Yeah, well, we did like Duran Duran. I will say we were totally into, but nobody looked like Duran Duran. I think that's the difference between
maybe not in San Antonio. In Minneapolis, right. It was people very much wanted to look like Duran Duran, and I mean, kids in my grade, that was 7th, 8th grade, and they had the hair. They had huge hair, but it was new wave. It wasn't like Texas big hair. Yeah. It was new wave big hair, and so the hairdos that I saw when we meet Collie and that group, whether it was from the spike mohawk to the big swoop new wave hair that Collie's got, that was just a total blast from the past.
And that was in season 2 when all that went down.
Two. Yeah,
that was in season 2. If you haven't caught on, that's what this whole episode is going to be about, is about the 80s and about all the cool references that the folks at Stranger Things tucked in there that we just loved. Even the opening title.
Yeah, so if you look at the letters, so of course if you think about the 80s, neon became a thing everywhere. Whether it was the colors that people wore during the 80s or whether it was the signs, it was this proliferation of neon. So you see that from the start, is that Stranger Things sign is lit up in neon. Not only that, but it's red. And there are 2 iconic films from that period of time that also use these big standout red letters. And those are The Dead Zone, which was with Christopher Walken, the Stephen King adaptation.
I remember that one. Yeah.
And then there's another movie that was William Hurt that was called Altered State. And it's block letters in red, but what's really interesting is that in that movie, there's all these visions of these glowing red. Oh. And so it's not like a direct homage, but you can definitely get a sense of that was kind of a vein and a feel for filmmaking in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And I think it was really cool that the brothers picked up on that and incorporated it in their own unique way when they did the opening sequence.
Yeah, that's not something, you explaining it makes me go, oh, you're right. But I didn't pick up on that. And I've been looking at the Stranger Things title since
I couldn't
years
quite put
now.
my head on it. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And it was just by happenstance that I can't recall what I was looking at, but it was when I saw Dead Zone, I was like, wait a second, what does that remind me of? And then when you started binging lately and watching, we're all getting excited for the season 3 coming up, it just connected for me. And then when I started looking for 80s movie titles, you see all these ones that use red block letters and everything else. So that's a really cool way that they incorporated that. Not because it's just a cool looking title sequence, but because it has this very subtle homage to 80s filmmaking.
Yeah. Well, and what I've been laughing about was watching the show and seeing, like these flashbacks of our childhoods.
Yes.
Riding bikes, the phones that are attached to the wall. Like, what is that?
And the enormous cord, right?
The cord.
The 40-foot cord so you can walk around and get somewhere else. Or,
yes.
Yeah. And then it gets all backed and it's all jacked up and
it's all jacked
together.
Up. Fun fact, we actually got the long cord for my father, not even for his daughters. It was for my father because that's what he does. He wanders around when he's on the phone. So this whole cell phone thing is just made for him. But back in the day, we had the long cords and he'd wander through the house and through the kitchen with this. I don't even know. It was ridiculous how long that stupid thing is. But we had these chords. And then, yes, they would get all kinked and all funky and weird. And Claire asked the other day when we were watching it, it was one of the scenes where the kids were all getting on their bikes and riding off. And she was like, did you ride your bike everywhere? And I just kind of shook my head and did this double take. And I was like, well, yeah. And then it hit me that our kids don't ride their bikes anywhere. I mean, they go out and they ride up and down the street and such. But we rode our bikes to the grocery store or to the convenience store or over to a friend's house who lived 3 neighborhoods away. And my kids we've never allowed that. Like we've been much tighter where we've gone and dropped them off someplace. Not because we wanted them to be lazy, but just, I don't know, safety?
I think paranoia. So, because in some ways, yes. And you're absolutely right. Riding bikes was the only and everywhere you went someplace. And especially for me, so in Minnesota, it was cool. Near our house, there was like these trails. And you could drive, and so when they're going into the woods, like in the very couple episodes of season 1, there was woods like nearby us, so you could take your bike back there and go explore these woods and everything else, and it was super cool. We rode our bikes everywhere, and I think it's Mike's bike that has it's kind of like a banana seat, met a dirt bike and every kind of thing. Like, I had that bike. And it was like the shame of my youth. But it was really cool seeing them. Also, you had the different bikes, because I think there was a couple 10 speeds, and then I think one or two of them have an actual like BMX dirt bike when those first started coming into vogue. And then I, of course, still had the banana seat.
The banana seat.
Banana seat bike.
Yeah.
But I owned it.
Yeah, I bet you rocked that banana seat.
It was like the bike was it was meant to be an imitation of like a mini bike. So it had like if you can imagine like a motorcycle
mini
saddle.
bike. Okay, yeah.
So it was like a banana seat, but it was like black leather with like
that's cool, Rob.
No, it
You're
was
a cool
not.
guy.
Well, I was, but
you're such a cool guy.
It worked. Me, the bike, me. Yeah.
Chicks dig you.
They did. No, for other reasons.
Oh, okay. Speaking of chicks digging you, D&D in the basement. We already touched on this, and
yes.
Here's a fun fact, folks. I have been married to this guy for 25 years, and we have moved at least, I don't know, conservatively 10, 12 times in 25 years.
Yes.
We end up moving a lot. It just is what we do. I don't know. And every single time we move, there's this one box. And it has marked on it that it's Rob's D&D box.
Yes.
And I hate this box.
Well.
Because we have taken it all over the country with us, and I've actually never even opened it up, so I don't even know what's in the box. He claims it's all D&D stuff, but he won't let me get rid of it.
I don't know.
He keeps saying that he's going to do something with it. And I'm like, why, Rob? What are you going to do with the D&D box? Do something with it.
Well. So, I think on this move, I unpacked it.
Oh, you did?
I did. And so, when I
It's no longer in the box. Now you've, spread it across the basement?
I have. I have. Great. So now you can never get rid of any of it all in one fell swoop.
Awesome.
So, in that box, yes, D&D is starting in probably, it may have even been as early as 4th grade, and played it all the way through, the age of the kids who were in the show, and still have the stuff. Obviously.
Yes, we do.
But I have all the original books that came out. And if you go look on eBay and stuff, it's crazy what people are willing to pay for those original books. And no, I'm not going to sell them. So
Make us an offer, guys. He's going out of town soon. Make me an offer.
I'm going to lock them in the safe and change the combo. Never.
But yeah, so D&D I knew was a big 80s thing. I never played it as a kid, but I knew Rob had this affinity for it.
We did.
So every time they do a D&D scene and they're talking about that, I'm just laughing because there's my dorky, nerdy husband.
Yeah. Well, when they started talking about the Demogorgon and things, I could picture it. And then even so much as seeing the little figure they have on the table that's of the Demogorgon, I had that. So it was that and all the dice, and it was just a total blast from the past, especially the basement piece. I guess it was because we were out of the way and being quiet. I guess the equivalent now is the kids being down there playing Fortnite on the Xbox and never emerging, but we were actually interactive with each other and not... Anyway. But
speaking of arcade games.
Yeah. So, huge blast from the past watching them play D&D.
Yeah, so with arcade games, that was opening of season 2.
It is.
Was a lot of the arcade scenes that we saw. And that was another, funny, just made me laugh, and remembering back in the day where I would scrounge up all the quarters I could find, going through my mom's purse. My dad had like a jar, sitting up on his dresser, and I stole them. Dad, I stole your quarters. I mean, I knew you knew I was stealing them, but I stole your quarters so that I could play arcade games. We'd play the arcade games before we went into a movie. So we weren't the kids that hung out in the arcade, but it was in addition to whenever we'd go see a movie. And that was where I would hoard all these quarters from, and then I'd go and play. And it just struck me that my kids don't play, in the arcade. They play downstairs in the basement on the video games. I guess the D&D, like you said, of 1984 is Fortnite and what is it when they do the building one? Minecraft.
Yeah.
Of 2019. I don't know, but it's just interesting that our kids don't go to. They don't know the pain of coming up with quarters.
No, they don't, and I think it's.
We should charge them a quarter every time they want to play.
No. If you think about like now, so the arcades that we probably used to go into, you'd go to the mall and there was always an arcade, right? And it was packed full of games or wherever else. And the movie theaters had them too and stuff like that. But now you don't even see that. So you go to Dave & Buster's, right? That's kind of, and now you go to play a game and it's like $2, $3. But what's so funny is in season 2 where Dustin's playing Dragon's Lair and he ends up not winning the game and he's so angry and he's like, this is a ripoff. And I remember that game when it came out because it was like 50 cents as opposed to a quarter. It may have even been like 75 cents or even $1. I don't even remember. But I remember if you went over there to play that game, and I remember trying it like once or twice and thinking, there's no way. But if somebody was good at it, it was like they were a total rock star. Because everybody would huddle around and watch it because it was one of the first. It was very innovative as a video game in that day and time because it was an animation choice-driven game. And so no matter if you did certain things, usually if you did the wrong thing, you died. But if you did different things, the character reacted and it was kind of this animated scene. But what I also liked about that too, my 2 very favorite video games are the 2 that Dustin loves. Dig Dug, so I understand his pain of getting beat by Mad Max. And Centipede.
Which, again, Mad Max is a throwback, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 1980 was Mad Max.
Yeah.
And Centipede. Those are my 2 favorites. And I remember when they finally came out on Atari 2600.
Ouch.
Those were actually some of like the more advanced. They were still like 8-bit games. So, but the video games were not much better than 8-bit at that point in time.
Yeah,
so it was kind of akin. It wasn't like the debacle that Pac-Man was when it came out for Atari 2600.
Now, hey now, I loved Pac-Man.
I love Pac-Man.
My two games that I was any good at, which was not very, because I'd die and I didn't have money and my dad only had so many quarters that I could steal, were Space Invaders and Miss Pac-Man. Those were the 2 that I had down. That was it, though. I could not try things like Dragon's Lair because it was intimidating and it was crazy. You put in your 2 quarters and 10 seconds later you were dead.
Typically.
It was over.
Well, and then if you died, it wasn't like you could pick up and start off again.
Yeah, right.
You went all the way back to the beginning. So it's amazing to me that more Dragon's Lair games didn't just get tipped over and destroyed from pure frustration.
All right. Well, we're going to put a pin in the, because I'm going to circle back. I think we do need to start charging the kids so that they can feel what it was like being a kid in the 80s. We're going to charge them every time they want to play the games.
Yeah, but think about how you got your money. Do we really want them rifling through wallets and purses for money? Here's $20. You're like, wait a second.
I don't have any money. They can rifle through anything. It's fine. It's fine. I'm just saying. This is an option. All right. Something else that stood out to me on the first watch were the clothes, the fashion, the hair. OMG, so 80s.
Very much so. Very much so.
So Steve was wearing a members only jacket. Did you have a members only jacket?
I didn't. And the reason was so my parents were willing to get me like the knockoff.
Yeah.
And like you
didn't do the knockoff.
No. And literally at school you'd see people they had the members only jacket. And there was probably 1 or 2 people who wore kind of the knockoff, but you didn't see them wear it for long. And I don't know if it was because of overt shaming about not having it.
Kids were mean. I mean, they've always been mean, but we were mean in the 80s when it came to clothes.
But yeah, and you look back at them now and you're like, I'm not sure I get it.
Why did I care about the members?
I guess I never really ended up caring about it. For me, it was more about the shoes. It was about tennis shoes.
I have that experience with the shoes. I wanted the white Reeboks.
Yeah.
And I did not get them. I got the knockoff white Reeboks. And
Do we need to go get you some white Reeboks?
no, I'm okay.
Are you sure?
I'm fine.
You look a little...
I have healed. But I can't remember which store they were from or what was on it, but they looked very much like white Reeboks. I took white out, and I put white out... white out from the 80s. I put white out over whatever the tag was or whatever the line
whatever
was.
the brand was.
I can't even remember what it was.
You know, the Reeboks had that little Reebok right there by the center of the laces.
It was a total ripoff. It was a total ripoff of Reebok, and I put it to try to hide it, and I totally got called out on it. Within a day or two of wearing them. I didn't care because they were really comfortable shoes, and they lasted a while, so it really was fine. And I've always been very practical in that matter. But
you were such your mother's daughter.
I am.
I didn't really care because they were comfortable.
I did. But I did.
I love you, Mom.
She's not even listening to this.
I know.
But I did try. At least I hope my dad's not listening either, since I was committing felony on air. But I did try to hide it because of that, it just made me laugh when you said that about your shoes. Dustin. So I've decided that Dustin was the rich kid in this group because he had the best bike. He had the headset.
He did.
Right? And he had the high-top Reeboks at the dance.
He did.
Which were so styling.
And they had the Velcro strap over them and around the top.
Yep, he was styling. And then he also was the one playing the rich kid's video game.
Well, he was. But if we think about it, this is kind of curious. And I don't know, maybe people will comment or something like that if they really know. But so Dustin's an only child.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Dustin's dad is just simply out of the picture.
Right.
Or if he died or whatever, because his mom's kind of interesting. You know, she's kind of like an overbearing
I like
mom.
his mom.
She's sweet. And Dustin just totally blows past her and just kind of treats her like a rube or whatever. But it's an interesting thing. But yeah, I think you're right. He was an only child, so he was the spoiled kid. Yeah. But he doesn't act like it.
No, he's cool. I like Dustin. Yeah, he's a cool character. Tessa had said that Dustin was her favorite character. And so I was waiting to see what it was about Dustin, so I kind of had that in my head when I started watching him. It took me a while to love Dustin, but I do love Dustin now. He is probably, especially loved him and Steve and their little bromance that they pulled together at the end of season 2. Adorable. Just absolutely stinking adorable. So, the last thing I want to say about the fashion that really stood out for me, peak 80s fashion in this show, that award goes to Barb. Head to toe, she is the epitome. I mean, I think my sister's friend looked exactly, like I said, I think she looked exactly like her. And the glasses, the haircut, I mean, everything. They really, whoever put Barb together totally nailed it.
When you mentioned Barb and when you said the glasses, this is kind of another 80s blowback, and I guess I'd have to see the picture. But in some ways, isn't she reminiscent of Jane Fonda in 9 to 5?
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Because of the glasses and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Bit.
Probably not as big a hair or whatever, but that's
very
what...
similar.
When I think of those glasses, it's definitely, like you said, it's a very much an 80s callback.
Yeah.
For those big, lovely glasses.
They were not stylish.
Mom glasses.
I don't even know.
Those are mom glasses.
Why we liked them back then. Also, I don't know why we liked them because I did get one of these, the Trapper Keepers. I noticed Nancy walking around with a Trapper Keeper in her arm in one of the school scenes. And I thought they were frustrating and terrible. And if it dropped, like it was game over. Papers went everywhere.
But I think it wasn't necessarily.
Maybe I did it wrong.
I think it was that you cared. Well, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to be accused of telling you you're doing it wrong.
Thanks. Supportive.
But the Trapper Keepers were expensive as far as school supplies go. So guess who never got one?
Yeah.
Because my parents were practical in that sense as well. We just got the little paper folders that had the brads in them that were destroyed by 2 weeks of being shoved in your backpack. But I think the thing about the Trapper Keeper wasn't the utility of it. It was, if you think about the designs that were on the front, like it was some sort of like throwback to 70s metal unicorn blacklight velvet painting kind of stuff. And I think that was more the style of it, was like, ooh, look at that. They must be edgy. They have a Trapper Keeper.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something.
Okay, you also noticed a couple of posters in the room. What did you notice?
I did. So I thought the set design was amazing in this. I think the story and everything is really cool. The actors and actresses in this are amazing, especially for their age. But what I really think brings the whole thing together is the production and the set design was amazing. So if you look around, you'll see different posters that are harkening back to the 80s. I think in one of the kids' room, maybe Mike's, he's got a Dark Crystal movie poster, your favorite movie, the one you love.
No, I don't.
And then I can't remember if it's Steve or it might be Billy's room, but they have the classic Farrah Fawcett where she's in the red one piece. And I think to date, it is still the number one selling poster that's ever been out there.
No, I think you're right.
It was the absolute poster to have.
Yep.
And then I think there's another couple out there that I can't recall at the moment, but it was just amazing. They put those little touches in there, and that's really what seals the deal. I think, it's not that you look at it and go, oh, look, it's a Dark Crystal poster. It's just, it's there, and it completes the scene.
Well, and not only that, at least my bedroom growing up, I had posters all over the place. I had Tiger Beat posters. I had all kinds. I mean, I remember there was this one Tom Cruise poster that I found that nobody else had it. Nobody had it, just me. I was the only person that had this Tom Cruise poster.
You sure it was Tom Cruise?
Positive.
Yeah, because if nobody else had it, people were like, I think she thinks that's Tom Cruise.
No, it's really Tom Cruise.
Of course it
was.
But
anyway, we had posters everywhere, and our kids don't really have posters.
Like on my walls and stuff like that. Yeah, it was all the rock bands and everybody that I listened to. I mean, I had a U2 poster, I think at some point, although I don't ever really want to recall this. I'm sure I had a Duran Duran poster on the wall, but I had all kinds of...
I had Bon Jovi all over the place.
Yeah. And Tom Cruise, evidently.
And Tom Cruise.
But yeah, posters were a big thing. And it was literally like having a white space on your wall was almost like, oh, your room is not cool.
Right.
You have to have it like wall-to-wall posters. Friends who not only were the walls done, they had ceiling posters.
Yep.
And it was just, wow, can I live here? I want to get married here.
We did not get married there.
No, we did not. No. They didn't even have a Tom Cruise poster at our wedding.
No, not even a Tom Cruise poster.
No Bon Jovi either.
What was wrong with us?
I don't know.
So at the big dance scene, there's a lot of 80s stuff there too, including the songs they danced to. Do you remember what song that they danced to there at the end?
I did. It was The Police, I'll Be Watching You.
Yeah.
Which was a phenomenal song, and I remember everybody thought, oh, it's such a romantic song, and then when you actually listen to the lyrics...
It's terrible!
It's like a total obsession song.
Yes.
But, we were talking about it, and you brought up something really interesting, I think, about that song, that it's not only that the kids are going to be, like, watching over each other and stuff like that, and they're kind of developing these next stage of relationships and stuff like that we see, with the sweet kisses between the kids that are exchanged or whatever. But then you pointed out something else at the end of that I thought was really cool, that made sense, and I think it actually made the song even more apropos and kind of reinforced the underlying creepiness of it, although I love that song. It's a great song.
And what was that?
When you were...
What did I say?
All of a sudden... Well, it's when the angle starts to change and it flips to the upside down.
Yeah.
The song's still playing, but it kind of takes on this distorted tone, and then the sky kind of flashes, and you see the Mind Flayer still there.
Yep.
So we know that coming into Season 3 is that while at that moment, to end it, 11, we know she sealed the rift for now, but that doesn't mean that he's here, whatever.
Right.
It's
whatever
gone.
It is.
It's still
gone.
there, and it was like lurking right there over the school, like it was.
I'll be watching you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it was cool. That was cool. And the Duffer Brothers, like, that's not a mistake. They're so smart. They planned all of this stuff, and so we give them full credit for being geniuses. And I apologize now for not being on board with you guys earlier. So many apologies for that. But I'm getting there, and I really did enjoy this whole binge season that I've been on to go through all of this. Dustin was also dressed, pretty much like Ducky from Pretty in
was.
Pink.
I think if you got a picture of them side by side, you would see, like, Dustin's hair's super curly,
John
right?
Cryer.
Yeah, John Cryer, but it's like kind of swooped up in this 80s.
Yeah.
It was like an 80s homage to the 50s
DuckTale
pompadour,
thing,
the ducktail. And then the way he's dressed, he has on, instead of a tie, he has on a bow tie. So, kudos to Dustin for owning that on his own. But he has the jacket, and then he has, of course, the awesome Reeboks.
The awesome Reeboks.
But, if you think about a lot of 80s movies, too, the school dance. Like, today, I don't even know if it's that big a deal, but I remember at my age, the school dances were, like, important things.
They were important,
like,
yeah.
A la 16 Candles were being graded on it. But
being graded on it.
That's a whole nother 80s discussion
That's
there.
Right.
But, it was cool the way they put those things in there and the dances, and then they worked in these neat little snippets, I think, that were clear, either flashbacks or whatever you want to call them, to other 80 movies. So, like, for example, when we know, I think it's in season 1, or maybe it was in season 2, I guess it must be season 2, Will opens the door to the house.
Yeah,
and he looks, or the arcade, I think. I can't remember. And he looks outside, and there's the lit up sky of the Upside Down.
Yep.
And then if you go and if you look at Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when the UFOs in that movie are surrounding this house where a woman and her son are, I think this is William Dreyfuss's house. The little boy opens the door, and he is framed by the exact same kind of lighting and everything. I mean, and if you compare them side by side, it's like, this isn't an accident.
Yeah.
So it's just another stroke of genius of just having these cool little echoes. And I think it's not only really cool cinematography, but for those of us who are versed well in the 80s and kind of those iconic movies there, it's just a neat little, oh man, that's cool.
Yeah. They just really knocked it out with all of these little small touches that aren't so little. Like, we should pick them all up if you're from them. Now, our daughter didn't catch any of that.
No.
So, and that's fine, because that's not the age that she's in, but we did. We picked him up. So, I want to talk about a little bit more in depth about the music in this show. And that's
phenomenal music.
Yeah, that's your thing. It
is.
I like music. I listen to music. I enjoy music. Every now and then I will become obsessed with some certain whatever, and I will listen to it over and over and over and over again. But, Rob, your phone kills me because it's crazy. Like, when I pull up your playlists, none of it makes sense. You literally listen to anything and everything. And so I figured this is kind of your moment to shine, to talk about all of the music that you loved from the 80s. Keep it to the 80s that you found on Stranger Things.
How long do I have?
No, we're not doing that.
Okay. So the music was phenomenal. So the thing I noticed most about it is, and I think the folks who do the soundtracking and everything else, there's just kind of some unsung work, right? So the two guys evidently that composed everything in there are former members of a pop synth band.
Oh.
So a lot of the music that you hear in there, aside from what you know is licensed music from other artists, they developed it.
Oh, okay.
And so it's very much in the sense of being the 80s synthesizer keyboard type of stuff. There's this new wave influence. There's a sense of when the kids are doing something, there's this one type of music going on. And then you have, like, Jonathan Byers, who's this kind of an outcast. Well, he listens to The Clash and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And The Clash was the prototypical rebel punk band of the early 80s.
Gotcha.
But then what's even kind of, it's really cool is, so Billy, right? He's the villain. And he's listening to, like, 80s metal music, so it's like the bad guy listens to metal, the outcast kind of listens to the punk stuff, the kids are kind of representative of the 80s, and then even Steve, like, he listens to something that's kind of in the middle of it, because there's a song that he's listened to in the car with Dustin called The Hammer to Fall, which is Queen, right?
Okay.
But, like, Billy's is stuff like...
See, I didn't catch any of that.
Yeah, like, so Billy's is stuff like Rock You Like a Hurricane by the Scorpions, Rat, Round and Round. He's listened to Shout at the Devil by Motley Crue, The Four Horsemen by Metallica. So all this kind of, in the 80s...
Which, by the way, I think every single one of those songs is on your playlist.
It is.
Along with, like, Gregorian monk chanting.
Well, I have different moods.
Yeah.
So there's different things there. But so each character kind of has their own music, but they really did a good job through it. And if you look through all of the songs that they include, they're huge hits from the 80s. So Babe O'Reilly from The Who. Of course, we talked about Every Breath You Take by The Police. The Should I Stay or Should I Go? Which evidently there was an issue. They had to, I guess, convince The Clash to let them use it. That they didn't want to be trivialized as just kind of this song that gets played.
Right.
But it was more about the connection between the families and
the
stuff like that, and them
and-
trying to keep them close. But then you had other stuff like The Bangles is in there. With Hazy Shade of Winter. Corey Hart, Sunglasses at Night. Oh my gosh. Duran Duran. You had Devo. You had what I thought was a really interesting homage was they play the song Heroes, which was, and in this case it's done by Peter Gabriel, but it's a cover of a David Bowie song, who was one of, like, the original kind of iconic 80s, 70s, 80s, just very different as an outlier. And I think the whole part of this show is, like, all these kids in some way are somewhat outliers, especially the younger kids.
Yeah, no, and I think that's also another thing that I loved about the show is not just, the 80s and everything, but just the ages of all these kids. Every single one of them is just proof that even the cool kids have troubles and even the cool kids have issues. And even if you're not a cool kid, you can still find your people. You can still find your tribe. You can find, they all did. And they're all just...
Except for Dustin. Stacy just...
She totally dissed him. That was so sad.
Stacy's a B.
That was harsh.
She's that girl.
Stacy was terrible.
I hope Stacy...
Stacy, you're the worst.
Yeah, I hope Stacy had a terrible young adult life.
So even...
She's probably been divorced 4 times. Because we know.
That's, well, wouldn't you divorce Stacy? I mean...
Yeah, sure.
So even the actors in this show... Obviously not the kids, but some of the adult actors that they brought on and that they cast in the show are 80s.
Iconic 80s actors.
Iconic 80s. But it's cool because when I'm watching them, I'm not sitting there thinking of what they did in the 80s. I'm really not.
Oh, look, it's from Heathers.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not that at all.
I mean, gosh, Winona Ryder is as far from Veronica, as you can get in how she acts as the mom and everything in the show.
Oh, she's brilliant.
She was fantastic. Heathers is one of my absolute favorite shows. Favorite movies, favorite obsessions. I loved her in that, and I loved everybody in that one.
Now, like, how did they not figure out a way to bring Christian Slater into this movie? Because he was kind of, the iconic, everybody thought he was the young Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And he was kind of an outlier and kind of a weirdo. And I'm thinking,
who knows? Maybe he's coming in season 4. I don't know.
So if they're looking to cast Stranger Things 4, if you put Christian Slater in there,
we'd be down for that.
Trademark, I called it. So I should get some credits on that.
Rob wants a credit for that, please.
I do.
So yeah, Winona Ryder, obviously brilliant. Sean Astin, who is one of my favorites. I fangirl a little bit over Sean Astin around this house. And it's because Sean will not remember any of this. So if you guys play this for him, he'll be like, what? I've met him a couple of times. He used to do a lot of Run Disney, and I have met him at some Run Disney events. And actually talking to him, he reminds me a lot of Rob. In person, like a real life. He reminded me a lot of
buddies. I haven't told you about that yet.
Yeah, Sean, you don't know it, but this is your best friend.
Sean, she doesn't know. Don't feel the need to respond.
Sean and Rob's personalities are very similar in real life. And so I've always just really liked Sean. But in addition to that, Sean was the 80s boyfriend that we all wanted with the Goonies. We loved the Goonies and how adorable he was in it. And then he was in Whitewater Summer in the 80s. And obviously things went up from there.
Yeah.
And he's just been like in everything. My big Sean Astin movie is Rudy.
Don't get tearied. She literally, guys, she got choked up for a minute when she said it's Rudy. I'm not going to cry. She literally just got choked up.
I had to take a moment.
She really did. Y'all, she
true.
literally paused just now and had to, that kind of light pat to the throat you do to try to, I'm not going to cry. That was totally her just now. Don't say it again.
We should have videoed this one because it's true. I had to take a moment. But Rudy, I love that movie. Rudy is my movie. And I will cry every single time. Anytime it's on TV, I will sit and watch it and I will cry. So Sean Astin, love. So obviously, Bob the Brain was big draw for me in season 2, and he was adorable.
They did Bob wrong, though.
Bob, man.
Wait, that's hold on. That's a spoiler.
Oh, well, we've already spoiled a bunch of
things.
We
already spoiled things?
Yeah,
okay.
we've spoiled stuff.
Yeah.
So Bob the Brain's death, by the way, was really, really hard.
It was.
Really hard to watch. Honestly, that is probably my only major complaint from the stories and from the show that I've seen thus far that I would say could have been edited down a little bit or shortened. It just went on for a really long time.
I'm not sure what that was about because, we get to know Bob. And, the thing about this movie is, and maybe it's in the context of having seen him in, a couple other shows, where he's been, a seeming good guy, and then he turned out to be a bad guy, like in TV's The Strain that they did. So he's in that, and he turns out to be maybe not necessarily the guy on everybody's side that you thought he was. So I was kind of watching this with a suspicious eye. And he just turns out to be, this really
nice
decent
dude.
guy.
Yeah.
And then he makes the ultimate choice that he's going to be the one that risks it, but he risks it, in the best, most satisfying, sarcastic way to Hopper. He's like, what? Do you know basic? Should I just teach you French? How about a little German? I was just like, you go, Bob. That's right, stupid Hopper. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Hopper, too. He's a great character.
Yeah,
but I was dying when he was just kind of ripping him apart. It's like, dude.
Also,
just got
guys,
ripped apart by a nerd.
That's what Rob would have said.
It is.
That is actually your
truly what I would have
reaction.
said.
That is truly what you would have said if you'd been in that situation. So yeah, we love Sean Astin. But there was also Paul Reiser, who was big in the 80s. I think he was in Aliens, and I didn't watch that one, but
he had kind of this. He had a part in that where he was. Not necessarily a bad guy, but he was definitely part of whatever you want to call the establishment. He was part of the Weyland Corporation, which are the people that send him out into space in Aliens, or the ones financing it all.
I liked him, and I knew him from Beverly Hills Cop.
He was good in that.
And
Diner, of course, if you remember when he was in Diner, and he was also in that with like a bunch of what was maybe prior to like Judd Nelson and Emilio Estevez, they were kind of this new emerging kind of Rat Pack, because Mickey Rourke was in that, so he was kind of part of that group. Steve Guttenberg?
That's right.
Is that right? Okay.
I didn't know if it was in it. I don't remember him in it.
So anyway.
It's been forever since I've seen Diner. That's been,
I normally call, he's mostly in my mind because he did Mad About You, but that wasn't really like an 80s.
That was an 80s. That was 90s, right? And then Matthew Modine, who was Vision Quest.
Yes.
And the Madonna videos, and that's when he was like hot and sexy.
Okay.
Well, that's what you told me earlier.
I told you he was in the movie. I didn't say anything about the hot and sexy part. You just
I know.
Totally brought that to bear.
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
What's wrong with you?
Anywho. So, yeah, I mean, as you can tell, this show, if you guys haven't watched Stranger Things, we just ruined a whole lot of things for you, but still go watch it anyway.
It is. There's so much more to this than, and hopefully this is just context for going and watching it. Because if you were somebody like us, who's a born in the, whatever, late 60s, mid to early 70s kind of person, this will be totally your youth.
Yeah.
You'll see so much of it. And even if you're not, this is purely that kind of early mid 80s culture, and it's kind of cool the way they did it, because like Hawkins is small town Midwest, but it also has enough of the 80s vibe where you're like, oh my gosh, I remember that from when I was growing up.
Yeah, no, the way they've set it up, it's definitely like I said, I was pulling stuff from growing up in San Antonio, Texas,
right?
Very similar to what was happening in Hawkins, Indiana. So I think that's probably enough fangirling on Stranger Things for now. Go shopping for our binge-watching supplies. We are... we live outside of the Washington, D.C. area, and the past 2 4th of Julys, we made this big, huge thing about being in D.C. for 4th of July.
And it was fun.
And it was a blast. And
sweaty.
I am one of my fandoms, if you want to call it that. I nerd out over history crap. I mean, it's ridiculous. I just love America so much.
And Rudy.
But so I really, really love doing, but this year it's going to be hot and it's like middle of the week, and I don't know, we just didn't plan anything. So this is our plan now, is to sit on the couch and watch Stranger Things all day on 4th of July when it comes out, right?
Yeah, I like to think of it as we're letting other people have the opportunity to explore the Capitol area on the 4th of July, right? It's very giving.
Yeah, we are.
We're willing to sacrifice for our country. That's what we're willing to do here.
We are. We're sacrificing our spot on the lawn.
I like to think it's continued service, right? So I did the military for a few years, now kind of working for the government again, doing different things. And on top of that, as a family, we're going to give away that spot on the National Mall to watch fireworks for some other needing family.
We are. We're givers.
Yes, we are
givers.
Deeply.
So,
deeply.
Yeah. No, we're going to sit in our air conditioning.
Yes.
With our Netflix.
Nice and cold.
And we're probably going to get some candy and maybe some pizza rolls. I don't know.
We need to figure out like an 80s snack
That's
list.
just what I was thinking.
Like
we totally...
Pringles. No, I don't know. Pringles are...
we still eat Pringles.
I was going to say, they're not just 80s. We're going to have to figure out an 80s snack list and order some stuff.
Dough. We need some Eggos.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have Eggos for dinner for Elle.
No, we'll have like a whole day thing. Breakfast, Eggos.
So anyway, we got some shopping to do. We're going to go get our supplies for our binge for 4th of July. But thank you, sweetie, for joining us on the No Guilt Fangirls podcast today.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. You know where to find me, obviously, when you want to come back and fanboy with us again. So let me know.
Only if you're going to let me come downstairs. Because sometimes you kick us all out when you're doing this.
It has to be quiet. Oh my gosh, y'all.
I'm going to come back just so I don't have to stay upstairs. I'm just going to sit here.
You're just going to sit
and stare at you while you're doing it.
Awkward.
Yeah, that is That's kind of creepy. I shouldn't have said that.
No, you should have. All right. Anywho, that's it. That's what we got for today. Just as a reminder, guys, if you liked what you heard, if you can throw those 5-star reviews up there, leave a review. It helps other fangirls find us. And, it's no fun to fangirl alone. So we would really appreciate that if you can do that. We'll be back with our Stranger Things Season 3 recap.
Fanboys, too. You can always invite the fanboys.
The fanboys are always invited.
Okay.
Always.
I'm giving them a little throw in here, right?
Little masculine invitation.
Well, yeah.
No, I honestly just use the term fangirls because that's what I am. Fine. And it's me. It's not inclusive of just women, but guys, you're totally welcome. Anywho, all right. Thanks, Rob.
You're welcome. It was fun. Bye.